Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herold here on Badlands Media. I'm your host, Jon Herold, and got a pretty good show lined up for you. Carney from Canada is at the White House right now meeting with Trump, and there's some really good clips from that meeting. Like, it's just taking place still, but I want to go through and play some of those, and then got some news to go through. Before we get to any of that, we got to get a quick word from our sponsors. First up, we have Goldco. Oops, that's not what I meant to click. Here we go. The last 4 years have put so much stress on American family finances. Help end the stress now and celebrate the golden age with President Trump by diversifying with gold and silver. Remember President Trump's first term? Gold increased by 55%. Don't wait. Diversify your hard-earned assets and buy your gold from Goldco now with no purchase minimums. Goldco has been established as a top-rated precious metals company and a leader in the gold industry, providing white glove treatment for over 10 years. Their buyback guarantee assures you that if your situation changes, they will repurchase your metals at the best price, providing you with peace of mind. And you may even qualify for up to 10% back in bonus silver. Visit badlandsgold.com to claim your free information and instantsilver.com/badlands to see how much free silver you can get. That's badlandsgold.com and instantsilver.com/badlands to take control of your financial destiny. How's the chat doing today? Before I get into the show. Yeah, Mimi Two Boys ×2 says, I just finished watching my president speak about Canada to Canada. That's one of the things I want to talk about, because he's like talking smack, not talking smack, but he's just saying funny things about Canada to Canada's face. That's great. Bravis says, why do I get the feeling this is pre-recorded? This is not pre-recorded. This is live. This is currently live. All right, let's just get right to it. There are no updates on the Doge website. Kind of expected that. But we're going to get right into, let's start with this. This was before Prime Minister Mark Carney even got to the White House, like before the meeting, within a half an hour, maybe an hour. This is what Trump posted on True Social. I look forward to meeting the new Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney. I very much want to work with him, but cannot understand one simple truth. Why is America subsidizing Canada by $200 billion a year, in addition to giving them free military protection and many other things? We don't need their cars. We don't need their energy. We don't need their lumber. We don't need anything they have other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain. They, on the other hand, need everything from us. The Prime Minister will be arriving shortly, and that will be most likely my only question of consequence. He's got a great point. I think I saw a stat, and maybe it's in one of the stories we're going to get to later. It's like they are roughly 14% of our exports, but we are like 75% of theirs. So who needs who in that situation? And honestly, they haven't won a Stanley Cup in forever. So why does Canada even exist? Doesn't matter. Just kidding, guys. Canada's great. We have Matt Ehret. He's awesome. He's the one export I like. But anyway, let's get to this. There's like I said, a bunch of random comments. So I'm not necessarily doing this in order, although I probably should, huh? Oh, whoops! I just exited out of one. Yeah, let's start with this one. Actually, you know what? No, what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna scroll down to, and I'm just gonna scroll up as we go.
With us, as you know, just a few days ago, he won a very big election in Canada. And I think I was probably the greatest thing that happened to him, but I can't take full credit. His party was losing by a lot, and he ended up winning. So I really want to congratulate him. It was probably one of the greatest comebacks in the history of politics, maybe even greater than mine. But I want to just congratulate you. That was a great election, actually. We were watching it with interest, and I think Canada chose a very talented person, a very good person, as we spoke before the election quite a few times. And it's an honor to have you at the White House and the Oval Office.
Okay, we'll get past the pageantry. This was a big thing that came out of the meeting, talking about the Houthis. And there's a story I have about, I think Israel bombed. Yeah. So this is a story I was going to talk about. So let's look at this first. Israeli jets bombarded airport in Yemen's capital. The strike came days after the Iran-backed Houthi militia in Yemen fired a ballistic missile that struck near Israel's main airport, wounding at least 6 people. The fighter jets bombarded the main international airport in the Yemeni capital of Sana'a on Tuesday. The Israeli military said 2 days after the Houthi militia in Yemen. Yeah, okay, just read that. The Israeli attack was the latest salvo in an ongoing battle with the Iran-backed Houthis, who rule Sana'a and much of the northwestern Yemen. Before the attack, the Israeli military had issued a call on social media threatening the airport and ordering everyone in the vicinity to evacuate. So that was, I don't even know when that happened. Just says Tuesday. It didn't say what time, but anyway, this is what Trump said about it.
We had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated. But more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore. And that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just the canal. It was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis.
So again, this has been a big back and forth, and there has been some interesting legal strife, like Congress, like Thomas Massey, like you can't declare war on anybody without congressional approval, but we've been bombing the Houthis, and the big Signalgate chat leak, that was over a strike on the Houthis. Israel bombed them yesterday in retaliation, they said, and now allegedly they're backing down. So that's pretty big news. And Trump says they're going to take them at their word. And then there was this that is pretty interesting, having to do with the Middle East.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, we're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then, we're going to have a very, very big announcement to make, like as big as it gets. And I won't tell you on what, but it's going to, and it's very positive. I tell you if it was negative or positive. I can't keep that up. It is really, really positive. And that announcement will be made either Thursday or Friday or Monday before we leave. But it'll be one of the most important announcements that have been made in many years about a certain subject, very important subject. So you'll all be here.
Okay, so I want to play just the beginning again to give you guys the context one more time.
And we'll have maybe before we're going to, as you know, the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, we're going to UAE and Qatar. And that'll be, I guess, Monday night. Some of you are coming with us. I think before then, we're going to have a very...
So he's talking about the Middle East and talking about the Houthis and all that stuff. And he says, I'm going to have a very major announcement. Just speculatively, what this might be, if I had to guess, it's probably a new country joining the Abraham Accords. You know, I don't know the full context of the geopolitical sphere, especially in the Middle East, like Ghost might. But if I had to guess, it's going to be a country joining the Abraham Accords. Probably Saudi Arabia, maybe, you know, announcing that before they go there. It also, maybe it's like a dark horse country. What if it's like a Russia or Iran or something crazy like that? No idea, but I'm assuming it has to do with the country joining, or maybe multiple countries joining the Abraham Accords. So we'll see. But sometimes, you know, with these announcements and the way Trump speaks, he's very hyperbolic. Talked about that a lot. He might say, like, I have this major announcement, probably one of the most important announcements, you know, ever. And it's like, okay, certain country X is investing $500 billion in the United States. Like, it's still an important big announcement, but is it really as big as Trump built it up to be? I don't know. So I'm curious, and I'm looking forward to hearing what it is, but I'm also not like, I'm not expecting it to actually be the biggest announcement as he framed it. You know what I mean? But we'll see. And then there's a lot of talk about Canada to Canada. And some of this back and forth was pretty good.
We're going to be friends with Canada. Regardless of anything, we're going to be friends with Canada. Canada is a very special place to me. I know so many people that live in Canada. My parents had relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular. And I love Canada.
Wait, what did he say?
Relatives that lived in Canada, my mother in particular.
His mother was Canadian? Was she Canadian, or she just lived in Canada?
And I love Canada. I have a lot of respect for the Canadians. Wayne Gretzky, I mean, how good, the great one. We're going to be friends.
Okay, like just real talk. I'm not big or up to date on, famous Canadians, but is there like anybody of importance other than Wayne Gretzky? Because I feel like that's the only name he ever mentions when he talks about great people of Canada. It's like they have a lot of great people, Wayne Gretzky, and then he never lists anybody else. So just curious. Then they actually talked again. Keep in mind, the new Prime Minister of Canada is in the room right next to him, and he's taking questions from the press. And they're like, yeah, what about Canada becoming the 51st state? And this is how he's responding to the Prime Minister. Like, it's almost as if he's not there, but he is.
President, you had said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. There would be a lot of advantages, but it would be a massive tax cut. And it's also a beautiful, as a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said, that's the way it was meant to be. But, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway, because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like.
Okay, so that's part of it, and then like part two of this is Carney responding. I think this is the one.
They get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership, and
you can see on Trump's face he's already thought of his response. Okay, like right here, he's about to like tilt his head to the side and kind of like laugh to himself, smirk to himself. He knew exactly what he's going to say here. I'm going to rewind a little further because Carney says it's not for sale. It's never going to be for sale. And watch Trump's face as he like gets the response in his head that he's going to say.
Be for sale ever, but the opportunity is in the.
You see that right there? Like he's like, well, and then you just watch.
And what we can build together. We have done that in the past. And part of that, as the president just said, is with respect to our own security. And my government is committed for a step change in our investment in Canadian security and our partnership. And I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO, and us playing our full weight in NATO, and that will be part of it.
And they have, I must say, Canada is stepping up the military participation because Mark knew, they were low and now they're stepping it up. And that's a very important thing. But never say never. Never say never.
And then he starts mouthing never. But that's what he thought of. Never say never. When I point out that clip, it's so funny. Okay, a couple more things. They talked about tariffs quite a bit. Where's the one I want to? Talks about China. The Houthis again. Okay, this is one that I thought was interesting about the trade deals. I don't know if I'm going to play this full clip, but take a listen to this.
A situation, because everyone says, when are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now, Howard, if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. We don't care about their market. They want a piece of our market. So we can just sit down, and I'll do this at some point over the next 2 weeks, and I'll sit with Howard and Scott and with our great vice president, who has done a really good job. We have some good news to report on a lot of fronts, but JD will be there and Marco, and we're going to sit down and we're going to put very fair numbers down, and we're going to say, here's what this country, what we want, and congratulations, we have a deal. And they'll either say, great, and they'll start shopping, or they'll say, not good, we're not going to do it. I said, that's okay, you don't have to shop. Now, we may think, well, they have a right, that maybe we were a little bit wrong, so we'll adjust it. And then you people will say, oh, it's so chaotic. No, we're flexible. But we'll sit down and we'll, at some point, in some cases, we'll sign some deals. It's much less important than what I'm talking about. For the most part, we're just going to put down a number and say, this is what you're going to pay to shop. And it's going to be a very fair number. It'll be a low number. We're not looking to hurt countries. We want to help countries. We want to be friendly with countries. But you keep writing about deals. When are we going to sign? When? It's very simple. We're going to say, in some cases, we want you to open up your country. In some cases, we want you to drop your tariffs. I mean, India, as an example, is one of the highest.
You guys get the point here. And this is something I pretty much said, I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was in Guard. I don't remember. It doesn't matter what these other countries want. There is no actual negotiating here, to the extent that we think negotiations are taking place. Like, both sides are not coming to the table on an even footing, excuse me, and like, okay, I'll give you this if you give me this. No, we're going to these countries, or I guess they're coming to us, and we're telling them, like, hey, this is what you're doing, and either take it or leave it. And if you leave it, you're screwed. That's essentially what Trump just said. I think the quote is in the caption here, actually. When are you going to sign deals? We don't have to sign deals. We could sign 25 deals right now if we wanted. We don't have to sign deals. They have to sign deals with us. They want a piece of our market. We don't want a piece of their market. And this is why it's also so important what Trump is doing on the flip side of this with all his executive actions and unleashing our economy and cutting all the bureaucratic red tape. Because as that stuff continues to pick up, it makes these other countries even more irrelevant to us. You know what I mean? So it's just interesting that he actually finally confirmed what we've been talking about, that these deals, whether they're actually being negotiated or agreed to behind the scenes, doesn't matter, because there is no actual negotiation. It's just Trump setting the market and these people either taking it or leaving it. He does talk about how he hated Trudeau before. This is funny.
I won't say this about Mark, but I didn't like his predecessor. I didn't like a person that worked for. She was terrible, actually. She was a terrible person. And she really hurt that deal very badly, because she tried to take advantage of the deal and she didn't get away with it. You know what I'm talking about. But so, we had a bad relationship having to do with the fact that we disagreed with the way they viewed the deal, and we ended it. We ended that relationship pretty much. The USMCA is great for all countries. It's good for all countries. We do have a negotiation coming up over the next year or so to adjust it or terminate it.
Oh, yeah, the sunset on the USMCA is coming up. I forgot about that. All right. Oh, this is kind of the same thing I just said, but worth showing. And I think this might be the last one. Oh, actually, no, there's one more I want to play after this.
During the campaign, Prime Minister Carney talked about the American betrayal. How do you react if Canada decided not to shop in the American store as much as before and decided to partner with other countries?
Well, we don't do much business with Canada from our standpoint. They do a lot of business with us. We're at like 4%. And usually those things don't last very long. We have great things, great product. The kind of product we sell, nobody else can sell.
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty sure it's 14%, but we'll get to that later. And then there's something on the CHIPS Act. And you know what? Maybe I might save this for the Power Hour Wednesday, because we talk about the CHIPS Act so much on that show. So yeah, I'm going to save that. And yeah, that's all the clips I got for this. So we're going to jump ahead to probably one of the bigger pieces of news from yesterday, I would say, is this one. Trump yesterday signed an executive order halting federal funding for gain-of-function research. It's about darn time. I honestly can't believe it took this long. But anyway, President Trump signed an executive order Monday aimed at shielding the American public from the dangers of gain-of-function research, including the type of controversial experimentation believed to have played a role in the COVID-19 pandemic. It immediately ends all current and future federal funding for high-risk gain-of-function research conducted in adversarial nations like China and Iran, as well as in any country deemed to lack adequate oversight of biological experiments. And this right here, we were funding research that was conducted in China, and that's where it came from. It also gives American research agencies new authority to identify and terminate federal support for any biological research that poses a threat to public health, safety, or national security. And a key provision of the order blocks taxpayer funding from being used for foreign research that could lead to future pandemics, according to the administration. So this just takes me back to Fauci, back right before, a week before Trump took office. He was on that interview and he's like, Trump will be hit by a pandemic during his administration. It's this kind of research and this kind of stuff that, and it's not just with, they do shady stuff like this all the time. It's all over the place. Still can't believe it took so long to get rid of, but great step forward. Absolutely crucial. We still need to get to the bottom of what happened with COVID. Maybe that's next. I don't know. But yeah, this is a big one from yesterday. And then on top of that, there was another one that had to do with, again, cutting red tape, this having to do with critical medicines. The way our medical industry is set up is just so, what's the right word? I could use so many words here, like disgusting, convoluted, corrupt. It's terrible. Like you look at what they charge you for just like the stick that they use to look at your tonsils or whatever, the tongue suppressor thing. Like $10 or something they'll charge your insurance company. The whole thing needs an overhaul. And these are baby steps towards doing that. Misbehaving Irishman says this EO coming now after Tulsi's interview with Megyn Kelly is noticeable. I guess I'm not sure what I missed that interview. Must have happened while I was at GART. Spetzel, Fauci's statement about a coming pandemic was on the heels of removing the moratorium on gain-of-function research 2 days after the J5 2017 on how to stop Trump. Yep, it was Obama who removed the moratorium on gain-of-function research, and it was Dr. Holdren who was the head of HHS or whatever that released it. The whole thing's crazy. Racket, Bright Star, that's a great one. Scam, that's another good one. A lot of good words to use to describe our medical industry. A lot of money and a lot of lobbyist dollars get thrown around to keep it that way. This having to do with the trade war. I thought this was interesting. This was leading up to the meeting. I probably should have read it before I showed all the clips. But again, CNN framing. I like going to CNN to see how they are framing things with the Trump administration. It's great insight. But Trump's trade war with Canada has backfired on America. Now he has a crucial meeting with Mark Carney. Canadian Prime Minister Carney will visit the White House Tuesday, what could be one of the most contentious meetings between neighboring leaders in years. Yeah, here we go. Canada accounts for 14% of all trade, according to government data. Canada is also the top country the U.S. exports goods to, with biggest exports being energy and cars. So they're 14% of all trade. That's where I got the number from. That must be imports and exports. Meanwhile, the United States is Canada's top destination for its exports. More than 3/4 of them, 75% of their exports are to us. It includes lumber, which Trump signed an executive order increasing our own domestic lumber production. Steel, same thing with that, and aluminum. He did all three of those. About 30% of the softwood lumber consumed in the United States is imported, with Canada accounting for more than 80% of those imports. That is nuts. But again, we don't need them. Jackie Espada, John will not read my comment on air. No, I won't if you include that word. You guys are terrible. You guys are terrible trying to get me to say that word. You're going to get me in trouble. You get me canceled, what happens? Why are you trying to get Badlands canceled? It's a terrible idea. But nice to see you watching the show, Jackie. Thanks for being here. I don't see Cam though, and that's a little disappointing. Anyway, here's another interesting story I thought, because this is something we talked about quite a bit, having to do with our treasuries and our debt. America's trading partners have a massive bazooka in the trade war. They may never use it. One of America's closest allies recently raised eyebrows for threatening to fire off the ultimate financial weapon against Washington in trade talks, which is dumping U.S. debt. Japanese finance minister, I'm not even going to try that name, whose country is the biggest holder of U.S. treasuries, said on Friday that selling the assets is a card on the table if in tariff negotiations. It does exist as a card, but I think whether we choose to use it or not would be a separate decision. And they walked back the comment. Japan was unlikely to fire this big bazooka in a trade war anyway, since selling U.S. treasuries is considered an extreme move, one that would likely backfire. Still, the short-lived threat raises an ugly truth. The United States relies on other countries buying its $36 trillion mountain of debt. It's another way that President Donald Trump's aggressive trade war could hurt the U.S. economy, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Japan is our biggest holder of treasuries, 1.1 trillion in terms of foreign countries. I think our own government is the actual biggest holder. I think China has 784 billion. United Kingdom has 750 billion. But I thought it was interesting they were seeding this story, or focusing on this story. I missed Japan actually having these comments, but it's interesting because I do think at some point this is a weapon they'd be willing to use if they have the control. Japan sold massive amounts of U.S. debt. It would very likely spark a massive treasury sell-off. Treasury rates would in turn sharply increase, making it more expensive for Washington to borrow and freaking out investors along the way. They're looking for everything they can to spook investors. They want the economy to go down in a Trump administration. But yeah, so I thought this was interesting. They do say it's also unlikely because it would hurt the trade. Tariffs have the potential to reduce the amount of capital seeking a home in American assets, which could lift interest rates and hurt the value of the U.S. dollar. Even if large-scale treasury sell-off is unlikely, other nations, including one of America's close allies, are clearly considering all options. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting story. And then having to do with tariffs, I have two other stories. I want to find I'll play this clip first, and then I'll find the other story.
Economists say tariffs will have a particularly negative impact on Black households and small businesses in communities of color.
I think the risk is real.
But do not fear. That's the message from Pastor Raymond Thomas, co-founder and dean at the Joseph School of Business. While teaching practical business solutions in a faith-based environment, the Christian Business School has created its own partner network by trying to help insulate small businesses in Black and brown neighborhoods from the tariff shock and economic uncertainty.
Because of our international presence, right? We now have opportunity to create platforms like what we call a global partner network, again, where we can develop relationships, again, in Nigeria, in Tanzania, in South Africa, where we can begin to look at other channels for supply and for distribution.
Economy.
This is what they do. When they can't actually defeat something on the principle of the argument, they just call it racist. And so now that, the way Trump has wielded these tariffs, it's been brilliant. It's been, this is what I expected. Like he puts the threat out there, he gets everybody to capitulate for the most part, he pauses it, and now all the bad things that they actually said about the tariffs haven't taken place, and so they can no longer win on the argument because what they said was going to happen isn't happening, so they just call it racist. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's what they would have called me had I said that word the other day. But no surprise, it just kind of shows the media hasn't really changed at all. This is a great story. And I think it was Chris Paul who posted this on his Telegram. I should probably pull that up because I'm going to want to read his comments on it. Yeah. So hold for processing. Let me find. Man, he posts so much. Okay, here we go. This is the story. Where Trump is likely getting the $1.98 gas price figure. They say the key points are he falsely claimed gas prices have hit $1.98 per gallon. U.S. drivers are actually paying around $3.16 per gallon on average, about $1.18 more than Trump's claim. And then RBOB gasoline futures have traded below $1.98 per gallon, but this does not reflect what drivers are actually paying at the pump. And here's the thing. Trump never actually said this is what drivers are paying at the pump. So Trump wasn't lying with the story. He didn't falsely claim it. He was right. He was talking about the futures. President Trump has falsely claimed that gasoline prices have fallen below $2 per gallon in his push to convince the Federal Reserve to lower interest rates. Gasoline just broke $1.98 a gallon, lowest in years. Consumers have been waiting for years to see pricing come down. No inflation, the Fed should lower its rate. And then here's where they kind of admit he's kind of right. RBOB gasoline futures did touch $1.98 per gallon on Thursday, the day before Trump's post. Clearly, that's what he was talking about. The contract is currently trading at around $2 after hitting a low of about $1.96 during Monday's trading session. The RBOB contract, however, does not reflect what drivers are currently paying at the pump. The contract tracks wholesale unfinished gasoline before other costs are included, such as mixing in ethanol to produce retail gas. Now, this is what Chris Paul said over on Telegram. The reason the media focuses on the average price per gallon consumer price is that if they focused on the actual cost of the gasoline, people might realize their governments were robbing them blind. Looking at you, California. And that's the takeaway. Like they don't want to actually focus on the actual price of gasoline. Now, I don't expect, gas prices at the pump to be this number. They wouldn't be. But there's a huge disparity in the profit margins here. But Trump was right. But this is a great example of what the media does to misrepresent him and essentially call him a liar. Do it all the time. But I'm curious, like by 2028, what do you think gas prices will be at? I bet they'll be around what they were during COVID. I don't even remember what it was. Down to $2.39 in Texas. Go dog go. That's nuts. I need to fill my tank, so I don't even know what it's at right now in Bismarck here. But California, over $4, almost $5. $2.91 in Georgia. I mean, they're definitely coming down. Ty, Chris Paul is right about everything. Yeah, pretty much. Bravis says 189 at its best. Where do you live? 369 in Dallas, 289 in Texas. John is so racist he won't even say black. Well, that's not true. I can say black. I typically say African American though. 370 in PA, 267 in Kentucky. Isn't it crazy how the prices are so like varied all over the country? Like what is the logical explanation for that other than your local state governments? It's crazy. 262 in Northwest Arkansas. If I do say teats, I'm comfortable with that word. John likes his coffee African Americans. St. Pete, that's a good one. Yeah, varied from one county to the next. I mean, I understand there's going to be some price fluctuation based on how far you are from where it's purchased. 241 in South Carolina. Yeah, I get the logistics, but logistics shouldn't account for dollars upon dollars of variation. 233 in Baton Rouge. It's typically taxes. Blue state policies. That's why California is insane. Anyway, we'll keep going here. And this is the other one I want to talk about, because we were just talking about the tariffs and our treasuries and what would happen and all that stuff. This is a comment Bessent made having to do with the U.S. debt limit, and this has to do with Congress and the bills they're looking to pass, the big beautiful bill, the package, the reruns of the stories I keep telling you about. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Tuesday that the Trump administration's estimate for when the U.S. will run out of cash to pay its bills will be forthcoming, but that the debt ceiling is on the warning track. Bessent said Treasury was still tallying the massive influx of federal tax receipts that came in around the April 15 filing deadline as it works to come up with a more precise forecast for when the U.S. will exhaust its borrowing capacity, known as the X date. The date is widely seen as a de facto deadline for congressional Republicans to pass their mega bill of tax, border, and energy policies, because GOP leaders have included a debt limit hike as part of the party line package, avoiding the need for Democrat votes. Bessent previously said that he would update Congress on the X date in the first half of May. He said Tuesday the estimate would be forthcoming. Just as an outfielder running for a fly ball, we are on the warning track, Bessent said during testimony before a House Appropriations Subcommittee. And when you're on the warning track, it means the wall's not far away. The U.S. debt limit was reinstated at $36.1 trillion on January 2nd. Treasury since January has been relying on special accounting maneuvers to continue paying the nation's bills while avoiding breaching that statutory borrowing cap. And this is why I'm so confused. I mean, I'm kind of always confused when it comes to the financial stuff because I'm by no means an expert, but we had that big debate. Like, we were worried about the shutdown, and I think that was leading up to, was it March 15th or April 15th? I don't remember. I think it was March. And we're like, oh, this is the time, guys. For the 100th time I've said this since I started streaming, they can't kick the can down the road any further. This is probably the time it's going to happen. And of course, it didn't happen. They ended up voting on something and passed it, and it's been in negotiations ever since, right? But here we are again. They're going to be faced with the choice to either kick the can down the road in terms of letting ourselves default, or they're going to raise the debt limit. And Trump says he wants the debt limit raised, and a lot of the times when he says stuff, he actually wants the opposite. Not always, but it just makes you wonder what he actually wants this time. Because I do think at some point that probably does need to happen. Trump said it was going to need to happen. So we shall see. But this is interesting. I wonder what special maneuvers are doing. Special accounting maneuvers. Like if the government came to audit me and like there's weird stuff on my books, I'd be like, oh, those are just special accounting maneuvers. Like, that sounds like something fraudulent. So I don't know. I wonder what they're not funding and why they can't just not fund that permanently. Why can't we just do special accounting maneuvers in perpetuity and lower our taxes? Already did this story about stopping to bomb the Houthis. I wonder if this has to do with that announcement too. When Trump said earlier that there's going to be a big announcement having to do with the Middle East, before they go to Saudi Arabia next week. I wonder if the Houthis stopping their bombing has to do with that announcement, which would make me think it's Iran joining the Abraham Accords, because the Houthis are essentially backed by Iran. We shall see. I thought this was so random. I haven't thought about the baseball shooting back in 2017 in so long. Like forever, but for some reason the story's coming back up again. House Republicans revisited the 2017 congressional baseball shooting Tuesday, releasing a report attacking the FBI over its initial characterization of the event as a suicide by cop. The report from the House Intelligence Committee incorporated FBI records released to Congress by Director Kash Patel in March. In an early morning news conference Tuesday, Intelligence Chair Rick Crawford accused the Bureau of acting with a complete disregard and lack of investigative integrity. As first reported by Politico, the FBI in November 2017 briefed lawmakers who had been present for the shooting that it had determined that the attack was suicide by cop rather than a politically motivated act of terrorism. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise and 3 others were wounded in the attack. For the Republicans, the FBI's characterization at the time was a sign of the political motivation of the federal law enforcement agency, which was used to mislead the influence public opinion. So, I mean, I understand what they're trying to do here. They're like, no, this was political, the way they characterize this. But here's the thing. At this point in time, we already know like how politicized the Federal Bureau of Investigation had become, how the entire intel community has become politicized. Like, doesn't Congress have better things to do than investigate something from 2017 just to tell us it was politicized? Like, there were other things from 2017 that I would be more interested in getting to the bottom of. Like, what about the politicization of the Russia collusion hoax? I'd rather them spend their time and our money investigating that stuff and prosecuting that stuff, because they're not going to get any prosecution from this. Like, the dude's dead. The dude who did it is dead, and they're not going to go after the FBI, the people who put the report together, and put them in jail over this. Bravis, this is not a real thing affecting us now. So, again, Congress, waste of time, waste of money. I wonder if Anna Polina Luna is on this committee. Well, she's not the chair. But anyway. So I thought that was just weird that was coming up. I also wonder what these updates are. Let's see if anything broke. Safety net. Yeah, nothing important. Yeah, GOP lawmakers clash over tax cut for wealthiest constituents. Back and forth, back and forth. Okay, so the final remaining contest, I guess, unresolved contest from November's elections has finally been resolved for now. Federal judge orders certification of North Carolina Supreme Court race for Democrat Allison Riggs. Federal judge Monday ordered North Carolina State Board of Elections to certify results declaring Allison Riggs the winner of the state Supreme Court seat 6 race, rejecting Republican Jefferson Griffin's challenge to thousands of ballots cast in November's election. U.S. District Judge Richard Myers, Trump appointee, ruled that removing ballots from military overseas and never resident voters months after Election Day would violate the U.S. Constitution's guarantees of due process and equal protection. What? Griffin's challenge sought to disqualify ballots that lacked photo ID or exception forms, but Myers said changing the rules after the fact would unfairly disenfranchise select voters. You establish the rules before the game, you don't change them after the game is done, Myers wrote in a 68-page ruling. Riggs was ahead by just 734 votes after 2 recounts. Myers ordered the board to certify the results based on the final canvass from December 10th of 2024. This ruling is paused for 7 days to allow Griffin time to appeal, and I'm assuming they will appeal. But that's just crazy. Like, if a state implements an unconstitutional or has an unconstitutional rule within their election system, okay, and I know it's up to the states to, handle the elections in the date and manner or whatever they're choosing. But if what they're doing is unconstitutional and you investigate it and you found illegal votes, voters without ID, voters that came in late, never resident voters, like people who weren't even allowed to be voting in that state, never resident, but you're saying, oh, it's too late, we can't change the game afterwards. Like, what kind of ruling is that? That's insanity. And this is like the same kind of rhetoric and arguments that they were making after the 2020 election with a lot of the Trump stuff. Like, later they found what the states did to be unconstitutional. Like, yeah, Philadelphia or whatever, Pennsylvania, you guys did something that was unconstitutional. We're going to overturn that, but we're not actually going to overturn the election that was a result of the unconstitutional rules you had in place. It's insane. It's retarded. That's what it is. And not okay. You can't say her name without playing the song. You know what? I don't even know if I have that song in here. I don't. And I don't even know where I'd find it right now. Dang it. No, if you guys give me a second, I can get it. It's gonna take a second. Because I haven't had to use this in quite some time. Actually, I don't think I've ever used it on this show. Okay, here we go. Let me just save this quick to my show, and then I'll get it pulled up for when I read the rants later. The Una Panuna Banca. Hold for processing. Okay, got it in there for later. All right, anyway, we'll keep going here. Senate Republicans demand National Archives release records on Biden role in Trump investigations. I mean, this is something I can get behind. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley and Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations Chairman Ron Johnson are demanding that the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, release all records showing how the Biden administration may have helped advance investigations into President Trump. The two senior Republicans also announced they are opening an inquiry into NARA and its Office of the Inspector General over their involvement in those investigations. In a 6-page records request, the senators called for all communications between the DOJ, FBI, and Biden White House officials related to President Trump's election interference case, which originated as the Arctic Frost investigation and later became part of the special counsel Jack Smith's elector probe. So I do like this because this is an accusation that they have pinned on Trump. Like how Trump is going to politicize the Department of Justice if he's elected. It's stuff they said about him during his first term, like he's just using the DOJ to go after his political enemies. Well, at some point, we got to get proof that that's not what Trump is doing. He wasn't. He isn't. Like, getting actual justice on these people is not politicization. But if they can prove that the Biden White House is working with the DOJ and FBI, which I'm pretty sure we already have a bunch of evidence on this, but more like narrative of that is a good thing. If they can prove that, that's huge, especially in combating the fake news. We have this. Pro-Trump legal group sues Chief Justice Roberts over judicial oversight, citing executive overreach. The group led by Stephen Miller, who's great. I don't think he's going to be NSA. I personally don't want him as NSA because he's so good combating the fake news. Not that he'd be a bad pick. He's the kind of guy that would excel in any role you put him in. But I think not many people can rise to the level of Stephen Miller and how he handles the press. Like you gotta keep your unicorn in the spots where other people can't do it. I think other people can do the job at the NSA. Anyway, that's completely beside the point. His group filed a lawsuit against Chief Justice John Roberts, challenging the federal judiciary's authority in certain administrative matters. The suit, brought by American First Legal, names Roberts in his capacity as head of the U.S. Judicial Conference, along with Robert Conrad, director of the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts. AFL argues that both the Judicial Conference and the Administrative Office have taken on regulatory functions that go beyond the judiciary's constitutional role of resolving cases or providing administrative support. Specifically, the group claims these bodies acted outside their authority when they responded to congressional pressure in 2023 to address alleged ethical violations involving Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito, and helped implement a judicial ethics code. I mean, how often do you see the Chief Justice get sued? Like, especially by somebody that closely associated with Trump. Like, this is Stephen Miller is one of Trump's right-hand men. So, like, he's not going to do something like this without Trump not only knowing about it, but probably approving it. So I think this is a pretty big deal. According to the AFL, such actions represent executive functions and, as a result, should place the Judicial Conference and Administrative Office under presidential oversight. The group also contends that the Judicial Conference should be subject to FOIA, as it is operating like an executive agency. I think it's brilliant. So curious to see how he fights that back. This is another big story, something we've been talking about for a little while, the Signalgate stuff. And during the meeting we had, during the Oval Office meeting or cabinet meeting they had last week, there was that picture of Waltz on that messaging app. And it turns out it's like oh, you know what? I got to find something quick. Because Ezra Cohen-Watnick and Josh Steinman were talking about this actually on Twitter the other day. Let me see if I can find it. So this is right here. So this is from Jason Palladino. Waltz wasn't on Signal during the cabinet meeting. He was using an Israeli Intel-linked app used for extracting and archiving chats. Staffed and founded by vets of the IDF intelligence units, the CIA once called Israel its #1 counterintelligence threat. So it wasn't a Signal or an Israeli version of Signal. It was an app that you use to archive Signal chats. Okay. And this is what Steinman said. If true, why was the U.S. government using a foreign-built technology, I don't care which foreign, to capture these messages? Would literally be such a juicy intel target that I just straight up assume it's being exploited. And then Ezra Cohen-Watnick responded, and this is something we're going to talk about on Wednesday's Power Hour, so I'm not going to go into the detail of this yet, but it's notable. Truly crazy how much possible malfeasance and sloppiness took place under Neuberger. Okay, the name Anna Neuberger. Look her up, and we're going to talk about it on Wednesday's show. Okay, back to this. The messaging app used by President Trump's former NSA during a cabinet meeting last week has temporarily suspended operations following reports of a security breach, its parent company announced Monday. Telemessage, an encrypted communication platform based on Signal and developed in Israel, was seen open on the phone of NSA Waltz during a cabinet session last Wednesday. The sighting came under scrutiny, especially in light of Trump's previous directives in discouraging the use of Signal after the Signalgate leak incident. Then Waltz inadvertently added a journalist to a private chat discussing military plans. Makes you wonder if it's inadvertent at this point, after he's been let go, and the fact he was using that thing. It's, I don't know. I don't know if I buy the inadvertent excuse. But anyway, so they're shutting down their business. This just reeks of like not a cover up, I would say, but like, oh, this was a mistake. We totally didn't do this on purpose. We're going to shut down all our services until we fix the problem, which makes me think like, yeah, you were totally complicit in this, which is big trouble for them if that comes out. And I'm sure they're investigating it. Anyway, next story here, because I don't have a ton of time left. And I want to get through this and a video, and then we'll get you guys out of here. How Democrats hope to overcome a daunting 2026 Senate map. Because they're facing long odds to retake a majority. If you think back to 2018, and maybe you guys in the chat remember, because I don't remember off the top of my head, I wasn't following politics all that closely. Trump had a supermajority after the 2016 election. So 2017, 2018, he had the House and the Senate. In 2018, in those elections, did we lose both chambers? Did we lose the House and the Senate? I don't remember. So if somebody in the chat can remember, let me know. That'd be great. But they're looking ahead to 2026 here. Senator Schumer and his allies are working aggressively to stretch a Senate map that offers precious few opportunities for Democrats to reclaim a majority in 2026, recruiting deep into the country's most conservative corners to find viable candidates in red states. But Democrats also confront the brutal reality of a map where all but 2 of the 22 Republican seats up for election are in states that Mr. Trump carried. I hate that they call him Mr. Trump and not president. By at least 10 percentage points in 2024. Okay, so we lost the House, not the Senate. Cool. I thought we had, no, we didn't have a supermajority. Huh. You guys are confusing me. Anyway, this is the map of all the states that are up for election. Like, this looks pretty good for Trump. But the main thing is we got to fix our elections. We don't fix our elections, doesn't matter. Anything can happen. It doesn't matter how many points Trump carried a state by. They're already starting to lay the narrative groundwork. They're seeding the narratives of like, oh, they need to come up with a strategy to win in these states. And then it's like, oh, they found a candidate. Oh, Trump's polling poorly and their new candidate is polling great. And they steal the election to match the narrative that they paint. Yeah, before I woke up too. Yeah, they're seeding narratives here, guys. Anyway, okay, this is the video I want to play because this has been making the rounds because JD Vance responded to it. JD Vance says, this isn't just sick, it's actually genocidal language. What a disgrace this person is. And Ilana Mar, you guys have probably already seen this, but I haven't talked about it on the show yet. So
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
I mean, that's pretty nuts. Our country should be more fearful of white men because they're causing most of the deaths within this country. How is this person in Congress? This person shouldn't even be in the country. It's insane. But yeah, guys, that's all I have for you today. Tomorrow, I believe. So let me double check this. I almost even hate to say it because I feel like every time I say it, it ends up ruining it and they back out. But this week, I have 2 members of Congress. You got Representative Harrington on Thursday. He's from North Carolina, District 10, I think. He's going to be on Thursday. And then Congressman Cloud, the one that's been rescheduled about 3,000 times, that's for tomorrow. So tentatively, we'll see what happens. I am at this point fully expecting both of these people to reschedule last minute. Is what it is, but we'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky and they'll stick around. Cloud and Harrington, back-to-back days. So I'll read the rants quick since I got a couple minutes and then we'll go. So Tiny Boy says, John, you missed the most important person from Canada, Miss Bright. That is true. But she's technically kind of American now, so I don't know if we can call her full-blood Canadian at this point. But you're absolutely right, Ty. Nice to see you, man. Hope you guys made it back last night. Desert Jewel 17, I'm spending my B-Day morning watching Badlands. Thank you for all you do, John. We'd be lost without Badlands. Happy birthday, Desert Jewels. Thank you for being here. And then Polymathanon says, Una Panuna Banca. Just for that, we'll play that video. Una Panuna Banca. And with that, we'll get you out of here. Make sure you guys tune in tonight for Only Lands, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Stick around on Badlands. We got content going all day. And I'll be back on the Daily Herald tomorrow morning, or tomorrow afternoon, I guess, 1 p.m. Eastern. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Extra, extra, read all about it. stopping me.